Assalamu alaikum and welcome. Horse meat has contaminated the UK food industry. Pork DNA has been found in certain halal meals in prisons. This evening's big question is how halal is halal. I'm delighted this evening to be joined by the President of the Halal Food Authority, Masood Khwaja. Masood Khwaja, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Assalamu alaikum.
By way of background, before we begin this evening's discussion, a reminder you can call in 02034 117 842 should you have any questions, should you wish to share your views. Let's learn a little bit more about this discussion.
The Food Standards Agency is now investigating how traces of pork ended up in some halal products supplied to prisons. Well, those affected pies and pasties have been withdrawn, and the Ministry of Justice has now suspended the contract of one supplier. Ashish Joshi has this report.
For Muslims, it's simply non-negotiable. All food eaten must be halal, and that means meat can never, ever contain pork. But that's exactly what's happened to Muslim inmates in some British prisons. Meat pies and pasties that were supposed to be halal have been found to contain traces of pork. The supplier has been suspended and the Food Standards Agency called in.
What we've done in the investigation so far is we know who supplied the prison service and who supplied that supplier, but the food chain is long and often complex, so we have to search right the way back to find what the ingredient was that may have caused this, where that came from, and whether any other products may be affected.
Thousands of inmates could have been exposed to the contaminated meat. 5% of the UK's population is Muslim, and according to the latest official figures, Muslims make up 13% of the prison population in England and Wales. 1/5 of males in young offenders institutions also describe themselves as Muslim. The Ministry of Justice says it's a fundamental requirement that prisoners and members of staff are provided with meals which meet an individual's religious, cultural and medical dietary needs. So it's managed to breach its own guidelines. The ministry won't identify the supplier or say what prompted the investigation in the first place. But Justice Minister Jeremy Wright did say, "This is an absolutely unacceptable situation and one which we regret greatly. Clearly this must be distressing for those affected, and they can be reassured we are doing everything we can to resolve the situation." In its defence, the Ministry of Justice says the food was sourced from a halal certified supplier. And that's where the problem might lie. Muslim rights campaigner Masood Shajara has been involved in this issue for decades. He told me there are too many halal authorities, and that compromises food regulation.
Imam comes and sees the place one day and gives a certificate for 2-3 years. And no, there are some institutions who are authorities, and then they got nice logos and everything else, doing exactly the same thing. They are not accountable to anybody. They're actually giving these certificates and receiving the revenues actually pours in.
First there was the horse meat in burgers scandal, and now this. Consumer confidence is low. Explaining how this was allowed to happen might just help. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
And welcome back. So there we have it. Masood Khwaja, you're the President of the Halal Food Authority. Some of our viewers may not be familiar with what the HFA is all about. No doubt we've seen it in chicken shops and various other places where we may purchase our meat from. Tell us briefly a little bit more about the HFA.
Well, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Halal Food Authority started in 1994, and we started actually by checking the meat and poultry. And subsequently we took it in a way to say that meat and poultry must be going in the food chain, and the food chain has to be looked at. And what it is at the time, I mean, the people who actually now are saying about there should be one body or two bodies, and they were the people involved in that at the time as well. And so it's very easy to criticize what the work is, but what we got to see, the positive points of Halal Food Authority. It started 19 years ago, and we have done, alhamdulillah, good service to Muslims, not only nationally, but internationally. Not only looking at the meat and the poultry, we have looked whole spectrum of food, meaningly whatever we eat, what the ingredients are, and our authentication procedures are contractual. We have contract with people who want to have their product halal certified as such, either it was meat or poultry or even food stuff, to see that the ingredients have to be right. These ingredients checked by food technologists. The plant, wherever the production is done, that has to be checked.
So talk us through the process. I mean, what are your standards for, and I suppose you have different standards presumably for different entities. So let's talk about the most common entity, which would be your chicken shop on the high road. I go to a chicken shop in Willesden Green, for example, and I'm not sure who they're verified by, but they certainly have a certificate there. Let's assume that it was verified by the HFA. What would that chicken shop have to have
if that
achieved
chicken
to
is
get
verified by Halal Food Authority, then all the ingredients being sold therefrom have to be checked. It's not only the chicken. Is the chicken, is the breading, is the chip, is the oil, is the service places and things of that kind. I mean, say for example, if I can not, without advertising them, say the Kentucky Fried Chicken, we have, over 100 shops of those, and we have checked roughly about 260 different ingredients which are there, which make the whole of the fried chicken shop run as such.
Sure.
So this is what is being checked, and that's how everything is done. And I might as well add here, because the question would come later on about the pork DNA. Kentucky Fried Chicken, actually, they were in negotiation with us for 2.5 years, because we said there should not be any pork in their shop, which is going to be halal certified. There should not be any porcine material in that shop. 2.5 years we had to wait for that. And when they agreed that they will not serve the breakfast bacon and things of that kind, Halal Food Authority went ahead and contractually authenticated them. And then also what happens is this: when the client starts halal operation, if we had checked that and afterward they change supplier or they change an ingredient, they have to tell us first, and we look at it. And then when we have looked at it and approved it, that's when they would be serving from.
So, all right. So we talked about the ingredients. How do you therefore validate or verify, for example, the poultry? The chicken, for example. I mean, how does one know that when they see the HFA seal of approval that the chicken has been checked?
Right.
What are your procedures for that?
This is a different thing now. First you asked me about the food serving plant, or food serving place as such. Now you're asking me about the slaughtering thing.
Yeah,
because slaughtering has to be done, that whatever the animal and bird we are talking about, the food has to be right, the feed has to be right for them. They should actually be fed according to European legislation, where the feed must be permissible for halal purposes. Then they are brought in there, and this is why Welfare of Animal Slaughtering and Killing Rule 99-400, which was instigated by Halal Food Authority. And there are 3 clauses in there that the slaughtering would only be done in a EU-approved slaughterhouse. Slaughtering would only be done in front of or in supervision of the veterinary surgeon, and would only be done by a licensed Muslim slaughterman. By licensed Muslim slaughterman, it means that we verify that they're Muslims, Halal Food Authority will certify, and the resident veterinary officer would certify that they have done the proper training for animal welfare and hygiene.
When you say animal welfare, let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, what do you define as animal welfare, if you like?
Animal welfare is this, that they are brought up or they are hatched, and their layrage is right, their feed is right, their living in those places is right, their transportation is right, the way they are brought into slaughterhouses, that is right, because the responsibility of the veterinary surgeons are threefold. One, they see the animal prior to slaughter, that it is fit for slaughtering. They see the animal during the slaughter to see that the animal welfare rules, which are the EU rules, are conformed to, and also they see during the slaughter that there is nothing of kind of ailment or laceration on the carcasses.
Sure.
And finally, the third thing is this: they put their stamp on it, which is the number of the slaughterhouse, to say it's fit for human consumption, which I'm sure that your viewers would know is the definition of halal.
Sure. So
the definition of halal is wholesome, pure, and fit for human consumption.
Fine. So in looking at the chicken case scenario, what you're saying therefore is that you would check the chicken shop to make sure it's not serving pork or bacon or such like. You would check the ingredients that the chicken shop is using to ensure that it's all certified and halal. What about the in-between phase? So how do you ensure that that chicken shop is getting its meat presumably from a HFA approved abattoir? So, I mean,
right.
How
That's a very good question. See, as we go along in this interview, we'll look at two things. One is traceability, and one is what one would call the labeling law.
Yes.
The traceability is looked at because we have slaughterhouses either certified and authenticated by Halal Food Authority or by other reputable Muslim organization. Because as I would like to point out is this is not only Halal Food Authority slaughterhouses would be giving us the yield of these edible chickens.
Yes.
I mean, they're even imported at times.
That's an interesting point. Let me just pick up on that point. When you say slaughterhouses that are not only validated by the Halal Food Authority, but other reputable authorities, what do you mean by that?
Say there are organizations down in Holland, there are organizations down in even in Thailand, right? And for lamb and sheep, we got Australia, New Zealand, and Brazil for other species as well. So what we have got membership of the international halal authenticating bodies, and we work on reciprocal recognition basis so that we can not only certify things here in UK, but we can have the imports as well the same way.
So how many
and they would be able to recognize the same way that whatever is approved by Halal Food Authority with that Halal Food Authority symbol, that is to be recognized as well.
Sure.
So I mean, in this modern world, it's a global village. So we work together with each other, and also we have annual meetings as well to find what is happening, what can happen, what is the future. Like people always talk about slaughtering and ziba and this kind. What we forget is this, that these animals, these birds, were at one time and are these days a produce of intensive farming. Very short, in the very short distance in future, we will have cloned animal and cloned milk from the animal. So that's the thing which we have to think, because it's all modernization, and this is why Halal Food Authority is on record in saying not only that we have to conform to the Islamic laws, we have to see what the science and technology is doing that. And for this purpose, what we say is this, that if the science is here, an Islamic axiom and dictum is here, the standards here, it's got to be subservient. The science has to be subservient. It can't be the other way around.
Sure. So just getting to that point, I mean, when you say that, obviously, there's a lot of chicken that needs to be verified for the sake of argument. How many abattoirs actually at the moment would HFA validate or verify?
Well, they are innumerable, and it is not only the case that if they are the largest abattoir and they are doing halal and they want to do non-halal as well. I mean, we have had occasion only about a few months ago where a very large abattoir in UK said, we want to do this, we want to mix non-halal with halal. Yes. We said, no, you couldn't do it. So we have revoked their contract and amicably we parted.
So abattoirs, therefore, that get your seal of approval, only deal exclusively in halal meat?
That's what we would like to be, yes.
Sure, and is that the case?
That is the case.
Fine. I suppose one of the practical, and I suppose before I get to my next question, what I really want to sort of get at is the traceability factor, because meat would get from the abattoir, it would be transported, it would then reach the chicken shop, there it would be, cleaned and all the rest of it. What is this whole traceability discussion? What safeguards do you have as the HFA to ensure that whole process, there is no cross-contamination, everything is clean, it's in line with the Islamic requirements for poultry and such like?
It is a very good question. You see, as I mentioned to you earlier, it's not only Islamic sort of conformity we are looking for, because that is the Ziba law.
Yes.
And on the other side, the European laws, the traceability, food hygiene, food safety, and everything else, is the law which is to be conformed by, including the hazard analysis, the critical control point, by the owner of the place, by the organization which owns those chain stores, simply because that is what we checked in there, that they are doing. Every slaughterhouse has got a number, has got a traceability, and as you said that they do the cleaning in the chicken shop. No, the chicken comes there right clean chicken. It comes in kind of individual packs in there. It has got all the traceability in it. It's got batch numbers on there. It's got barcodes on there. So we can trace back anywhere. If you had to say today that you went to this shop and you had chicken and chips, and you think that you had adverse effect of it, and they can tell you which actually place a cutting plant it come from, which chain had actually been involved.
So how does the HFA verify that? So if there was a chicken shop, say, I don't know, let's
as
say,
I mentioned, is the barcode. Our audits have that.
Okay.
Our auditors have got pages and pages of things to look at.
So if you were to walk into a chicken shop tomorrow morning and carry out an inspection and they are HFA approved, what would you be looking for?
There are many things on that audit form which we look for. And the first thing we look for as we enter into, that they have got all those items which actually are on the record to say. If there is anything different, say EC number 1234 makes no evidence there at all, and they've got EC number 4345. So we do question. And if we find there is anything which is not according to what it was said on the audit form, because the audit form is very much a thorough thing, because the manager of the shop has to sign that. So it all conforms to it.
Sure.
What we got to understand here is this, that the conformity lies on two sides. One is the endorser, and the other one who is the processor and seller as well, because this is much more has to be understood, that European laws demand that the people who are selling food of any kind, they are responsible as well. Sure. Because the very fact is, on the halal side, the halal endorsers are only looking at the status of halal and the ziba and everything else, and conformity of those laws which I just mentioned, right from the farm. Sure. To the box of chicken, if you like.
Well, I'm going to ask some logistical questions to you in a moment. Sure. But before we do that, let's take a call. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. I'm speaking from London.
Thank you for calling in. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering, the brother was telling us that HAC. So if it's not HAC, would that mean it's... I've got two questions, by the way. If it's not HAC, does that mean it's not halal? That was one question.
Okay.
The other question was, when HAC started, I insisted that we only buy that. But it seemed that the chicken or the meat, I don't know, it had some sort of smell, which was really difficult to get rid of, by washing. That I used to see in HAC meat.
And hold on, what's H? Thank you very much indeed for your call. I have no idea what HAC is. Presumably, I imagine you're probably either referring to HF's, the Halal Food Authority, which is the HFA is what who Masood Khwaja represents, the president of the Halal Food Authority, and not HAC. So thank you very much indeed for your call there. So I think we'll just leave that to one side for now and let HAC speak for themselves, as it were. But how many inspectors do you have, Masood Khwaja? One of the questions that people will ask is always nice having all these processes and procedures and having all this traceability and all the rest of it. But in reality, how powerful is your auditing system?
It's a very powerful audit. See, one has to realize one thing, that not that we have invented the wheel, but we are the first organization, and I can say that I'm the first president of this organization, where we have food technologists, we have the trained auditors, not only in the Islamic way of auditing, because there is no such thing of Islamic way auditing, by the way, that how to audit the meat, where to go. I mean, we have sent our people to BRC standard of training. We have sent our people up to Indonesia to turn the Islamic way of looking at it. We are the one who have done it. Numbers don't count. What counts is that how effective is this? That's what counts in there. I mean, we could have 300 people. I mean,
if you've got 5, it wouldn't be very good, would it? I mean, if you say, we have 5.
As a matter of fact, I would differ with that here, simply because the fact is this. See, the first thing first you have to look at, contract. It is your product. It is your chicken. Would you do anything to it not to give to your customers? I mean, the lady was talking about smell. It has nothing to do with halal.
Sure.
It's a condition of hygiene. The first thing they got to do is this, not the Halal Food Authority, because we have certified the status of ziba, the status of halal permissibility, right? Because the very fact is this, if you look...
But does hygiene not come into that as well?
No, hygiene does come into it.
Right.
Because we do not know that after leaving the slaughterhouse, after leaving the cutting plant, where it was.
Sure.
I mean, it's just like Coca-Cola tin. Coca-Cola tin, I'm not advertising Coca-Cola tin. I mean, if you leave it open somewhere and 2 days later you say all the fizz has gone, the Coca-Cola has to be blamed, and that wouldn't work, would it?
But let me put this question to you, Masood Khwaja. One of the problems that individuals, members of the public do have, and not only with the HFA, indeed many other organizations, is that, yes, verifying and having your certificate up in a certain shop is very nice, and it may give confidence to certain individuals. But the argument is that on a practical level, do you, and indeed, and you can't sort of speak for others, but this is a question that people are asking of other certification bodies as well, do you have the resources to realistically audit and inspect the number of outlets that you give credibility to?
Beautiful system which we have devised. We don't go and knocking at the company's door that your food stuff should be halal. If you don't have the halal sign, Mr. Ali, we will just close your shop tomorrow. People come to us. That way we manage it very nicely. That way we say to ourselves that we can do, you'll have to enter into contract, and that contract means that you are bound to work under that contract. We can do announced and unannounced audits, and we can even demand from you, say today is Wednesday, and what was the product today, where did you get, give us the whole sheet of that, and then we check it. Because this is a digital age.
Sure.
This is digital age.
Well, we've got a phone call, so let's take that call, and inshallah we'll continue. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead.
I just had a couple of quick questions. The first is regarding the actual slaughtering process itself. I just wanted to ask what criteria you use in determining whether that slaughtering itself is halal or not.
Okay, so the first question is in relation to the criterion, and the next question?
The second is actually in the shops or the stores where this halal meat is being served. Does the HFA look into whether the workers there are Muslim, or is that not one of their criteria?
Okay, yeah, very, very good question. And what's the next question?
Just those two, thank you.
Those two. Well, thank you very much indeed. There are some very, very good questions there. I suppose we did mention the criterion previously. We'll go into that shortly. But the HFA, I mean, do you verify the workers? Where do the workers need to be from?
Which place the workers?
So let's say there's a worker in the chicken shop, for example. Do they need to be Muslim?
Well, according to the local regulation where we live, wherever people are working, it is an equal opportunity thing. they are told, they are actually given all that instruction to say how to serve, what to do, what hygiene is, and everything else in there. The only place you need a Muslim is at the slaughtering station, because he's the one who's going to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. That is what makes, that zibah process makes it halal.
Can a non-Muslim, according to the HFA, can a non-Muslim say that?
No.
Okay.
We do not allow non-Muslim. That's why we have, after that regulation welfare of animal slaughtering rule killing 99-400, we have certified over 160 Muslim slaughtermen to be placed everywhere.
Right.
I mean, some of them are still working, some of them are not working,
yes.
but we have done about 164, 68 of them. So what we say is this, because this is equal opportunity place. I mean, true that we do not find in a halal butchery shop a lady working, we do not find anybody from a salon working or anything of that kind. It doesn't not mean that Islam doesn't allow that, because the local laws as well are there. Hygiene is much more important. If we are looking at the butchery shop, tell me how would you find that in a pita bread shop? How would you find a place where it's very valid point.
Yeah.
I mean, we have cereal in the morning. Who's making the cereal? Who is handing the cereal? So the question comes up in there that here in the Western places, especially in UK, the conformity to the hygiene law, conformity to the law of food safety are much more important and much more in vogue as such.
So if there was a chicken shop that was run by non-Muslims that approached the HFA for their certification, for the sake of argument. So there's a chicken shop called X. It's run by non-Muslims who happens, in Bradford, for example, wants to make some money out of the Muslim community there. It's run by non-Muslims, it's staffed by non-Muslims. They approach the HFA for certification. What would your position be? What checks? What would you say to them?
If they fulfill all requirement of being a good service in there, they can do the traceability of the food they're going to sell, then we would give them that license.
What about when it comes to handling the food, for example?
It's the same thing, handling the food I'm talking about.
Right. Will they need to wear gloves?
Meaningly the service people. Yes, obviously.
With chicken in a chicken shop, you've got the chicken there, you've got the batter there, and you're putting it together. What would be the HFI criteria?
You see, what we have to understand is this. Whenever we look at these things, we want other people to put gloves on. When we Muslims ourselves do something, the very interesting point is this, that, I mean, a long beard person I have seen serving in a halal restaurant which had off license drink as well. Does that drink become halal or haram or whatever? We are looking at others to do the right thing. Ourselves we're not doing. The irony, the whole factor is this: meat, poultry and foodstuffs, over 90% in UK alone is produced by non-Muslim organizations. Right? We're eating their cereal, we're eating their bread, we're eating their ingredients, we're eating everything else. But one must appreciate Halal Food Authority's effort that for the last 19 years what we are doing assiduously is making sure that Muslims are receiving the right thing under the right banner, under the right.
So if there is chicken here, I've got chicken over here, and I've got the flour here, and I'm putting the two together to make, I don't know, a bit of chicken. What would be the criterion? And I'm a non-Muslim. What would
of course the same thing, because have we not heard in the ordinary factories, if people have got cold or anything, if you got a laceration on their hand or anything, they can't do these things. So hygiene is there, right? They're given instructions what to do when they go to toilet, what to do when they come out of it, how to handle it, everything is in there. And I mean, what we got to do, we are looking at shops. I mean, the lady was saying about a chicken is smelling somewhere. If the chicken smells, and when you find that a person is not handling the chicken rightly, and he's got some laceration on his hand or anything like that, because when you are breading the chicken, you're not wearing the gloves anyway, either you're Muslim, Jew, or non-Muslim.
Sure.
Right? Because the very fact is this, in this country, especially in UK, I can say, and in the EU country, the law of hygiene is very strict.
Well, we need to go to a break. You're watching The Big Question live on Ahlul Bayt TV. We're discussing how halal is halal. We shall see you shortly. A reminder, you can call in 0203 4117 842. See you shortly. Assalamu alaikum.